Tell me if you can relate to this. You get it in your head that you need something. This something you know will make you sound better or in some ways make your creative pursuit easier. So you buy it. You get that endorphin rush, you set it up, you try it out, and within 10 minutes, the feeling wears off. It's not the one. Whatever hopeful, probably misguided plan you had with this thing is gone. So you put it on a shelf for it to sit there forever. A big part of the creative things I like to do come with a fair bit of recording and mixing audio. And I don't want you to think that I know everything. In fact, I am straight up not good at mixing. And if you watch my last video, I need you to know I struggled with that punk rock guitar sound. Recording that and finding a sound that I liked was really frustrating. I loved the sound of my guitar in the room, but once it was in the mix recorded, I hated it. I went through all my boutique overdrives and distortions I have behind me, running through the gamut, and I ended up using a very unlikely tool. I gotta get it. A preamp pedal. Now, preamp pedals seldom stay stuck on my pedal board for very long. I always tell myself I want to keep my pedal board small. You know, something subtle like a preamp is going to take the place of something that goes squee-oo-wee-oo, ricka-ricka-rah, squam-wom-wom-wom, all those kind of pedals.
Oh, you really made Tom Morello a lot of money, didn't you, little guy?
Except this pedal. I use this pedal all the damn time. This is the Templo Reel Deluxe. I want to scream from the rooftops about how handy this pedal is. I bought this with my own money. Templo and I have no connection other than being fellow Canadians, so we only see each other twice a year when we get together with every other Canadian to talk about how good our hockey players are, brag about the War of 1812, and discuss how bad Tim Hortons has gotten. So back to mixing that track. My guitar was getting lost in the mix. I was trying everything, and I finally took this preamp and cranked her all the way up to push my amp into a really hard, aggressive distortion. I recorded it thinking there's no way this really raw sound would work, and it was glorious. That was it. And afterwards, I was thinking, why did that work so well? And I figured it out. But I think first, we need to talk about the common question that gets asked. What is a preamp? What on earth even is the difference between a preamp, an overdrive, a distortion, these gain pedals? We're all doing something similar. Let's talk about it. Oh, I'm too old for whatever that was. So you've probably noticed that a lot of pedal manufacturers release a lot of gain pedals. That's because they're very easy to make. When it comes to electrical engineering, there's accepted practices, right and wrong ways to do things, which is sometimes why you see builders accidentally coming out with something similar, and then you see this internet bro hug of them both being cool with it. And that's not to say all gain pedals sound the same. The devil is in the details. Guitarists are very sensitive to small changes. We notice the smallest little EQ change, and we can feel the different ways pedals distort. That's like the response under your fingertips. But for the most part, preamps, overdrives, distortions, and fuzzes all inherently work the same way. And because of that, there's a lot of overlap. There's no strict definition as to what makes an overdrive or a fuzz. These are categorical names that are used to describe the style. An overdrive generally goes from clean to a mild amount of distortion. A fuzz is fuzzier. When it comes to how gain pedals achieve their different sounds, generally the differentiator is how they create their gain and how they are filtered. So for preamps, distortions, fuzzes, they all need to create gain. Gain is just input level, and that's a preamp. That's all it is, a make louder, machine, a make louder circuit. And with any preamp, we all know that as you turn up the gain, you hit that threshold where it doesn't get louder, it's just starting to distort your signal. That's called clipping. Overdrive pedals take this a step further, taking that overdriving preamp circuit and applying filtering to take the distortion and mold it into the sound they're after. Something like a tube screamer, they've applied a filter to have a little bit of a bump in the mids, and they've cut the bass to tighten things up. And then they give you a filter you can adjust, which is commonly called a tone control, giving you the ability to choose how much high end there is. Distortion pedals are generally doing the same thing as an overdrive pedal. The difference is they generally have more gain, which is achieved by using a higher gain preamp, or more commonly by using multiple preamps cascaded into each other. If you're familiar with how guitar amps work, they basically work the same way. One circuit creates the gain, then it filters a bit, then it sends it to the next preamp where it distorts it further, gets filtered again, until the amp or pedal builder is happy with the sound that they're creating. And this is why guitarists inherently love to take pedals and cascade them into each other, or use a pedal into an already distorted amp, rather than using an amp with enough gain for what they need. Cascading devices allow you to curate your distortion sound. Okay, back to preamp pedals. Boop. So these circuits are mostly just a boost in level, a boost in gain. Preamp pedals are generally used for three things. They can be used as a make loud button. What I mean by that is because they are designed to boost your signal level and generally are boosting frequencies fairly evenly, they're great for using them as a solo boost that doesn't change your tone too much, just makes it louder. The second use of a preamp, I'm not really a big fan of. You'll often see people extolling the virtues of preamps that impart a magical characteristics. Echoplex preamps are a great example. The Echoplex is a tape delay machine, but the preamp of it imparts a specific characteristic. As a result, people have these on their pedal boards and they leave them on all the time like a tone sweetener. Like I said, I don't love pedals that are too subtle, and this is a prime example of that. I mean, generally speaking, if it's so subtle that you might forget to turn it on and not notice, is it worth keeping on your pedal board? Is that not a band-aid for your guitar or amp not sounding as good as it should be? I don't know. Disagree with me, I dare you. And the third thing you can use a preamp pedal for, and this is what is a game changer for me, is preamps pushing your amp really hard into distortion, but it's pushing it into a very raw, unfiltered, distorted sound. Sometimes that really raw, rough sound can be really good for fitting your guitar into the mix. Let me explain. Let me show you those terrible mixing skills in action. Oh! Mixing multi-track guitars is pretty hard, especially if you want to hear the bass guitar. I can make it easier on myself by having a very full frequency guitar sound, and then I can EQ in and out frequencies that are not helping me. So check out the guitar riff here. Here's with the EQ off. If you have a visual EQ like in Ableton, you can see where the frequencies are hitting. So if you have the same thing for the bass track, you can actually see where the bass is landing as far as its frequency range. So if I solo bass here, a lot of the meat is in the 100 Hertz range. So you might want to go to the guitar section and lower down that 100 Hertz so they're not competing with each other. In the next section, I have a synthesizer. You have double track guitars, synthesizer, and bass. To make them all work together, you really want to tailor those guitar frequencies so that they're not competing with the similar frequencies that a synthesizer has. Here's the guitar sound by itself. always surprised, yet always being explained this, that what sounds good in the room does not necessarily sound great on a recording mix. I double dog dare you to listen to the isolated guitar tracks of Randy Rhoads playing on The Blizzard of Oz. Yikes. Smooth, sexy overdrives are nice in person, but smooth means filtered, and filtered means there's less frequencies to work with. Frequencies that you can boost or cut that allow the guitars to sit in the mix well. And by saving these frequencies by using a very raw, rough distortion sound, you can then have full control and do what essentially an overdrive pedal does in filtering it later when you mix. I'm not saying you should throw away all your glorious distortion pedals. How they distort and how they feel really affect the way you play, and I often will mix to a guitar sound that I like, since a lot of the time I'm trying to represent the guitar sound first. But if you're trying to play nice with others, you may have to forgo your usual suspects for what works with the situation you're in. Your mileage may vary.
All right, we gotta get to that couch.
So what's so great about this particular pedal? Well, first of all, you heard it on every single track. The guitars are just this pedal straight into my high watt. And it also works great to run as a preamp to run direct with my bass. This is made by a company called Templo Devices, and it's a circuit based on the sound of a Revox reel-to-reel tape machine. It's designed to mimic the tape saturation you get from those old classic tape units. It's basically the sound of nostalgia. One of the reasons it now gets a lot of use is that while preamps can be pretty simple, this one has a lot to shape your tone, keeping it useful for a lot of different situations, not just for guitar and bass. All of this is replicating what people love about tape machines, and to top it all off with this version, it has a vibrato built in which simulates the natural warble of the tape machine. I definitely recommend you check out Templo Devices. They make a lot of other cool takes on effects and amps, and I'm always watching for what new things they are working on. So the moral of the story, not everything is going to be immediately gratifying. Sometimes you've got to think a little differently, experiment a little bit, and man, give yourself time before you get frustrated with yourself or shelf that gadget you just bought. I've turned myself around on preamp pedals, and it helped me get some great sounds that I'm super proud of. If you can push yourself to get out of your comfort zone, I promise there's always a surprise, and it's always a good one. So thanks for watching, and have a great day, and do what the sign says.